Inside, the lights are low. This isn't your typical lounge. This is where the forgotten tales gather, where the shadows have their say. We'll talk of monsters in the woods, of killers with a motive and lights in the sky, and ghosts in the attic. Come into the waiting room, please.
Whoa, tonight we got Peace Kanuna Mano, and she's a psychic, astrologer, Reiki master, a spiritual life coach, and a paranormal experiencer. And we're going to talk about all these things. But first, behind the scenes, we're talking about some celebrities that Peace has met. And when I went to Hawaii, maybe about 3 times. My brother actually lived in Hawaii for 5 years. And I ran into Don Ho and some guy from Hawaii 5-0. He was flying first class on the airplane going to Hawaii. Nice guy. Peace, tell us about these celebrities that you met.
So I've lived out here for the last 8 years, and in the time that I've been here, I've done some celebrity readings, but I'm not allowed to say who they are because I did sign a non-disclosure. But the ones that I've met not doing readings, I was able to meet Dog the Bounty Hunter's son, Leland. He owns property out here. And during COVID, I was the smart one, and they had shut down all the resorts. And so there's a beautiful lagoon at one of the resorts. So I would go out there and spend the day by myself. And at one point this is like, I guess, every woman's dream. I was sitting in the water in the lagoon looking out at Maui, and a man walks up behind me, and it was actually Matthew McConaughey. He came over to say hello, and I didn't recognize him. I didn't know who he was because it was out of my element, and I'm just like, hi. And then he walks over and gets in the water, and then he does like a face dive, and immediately that's when it clicked. Oh shit, that's, Matthew McConaughey. Harrison Ford does live out here as well. I've seen, oh God, not Drew Barrymore, Reese Witherspoon walking down the road. I actually ran into Obama at one point. He was running down the road, and we were almost shoulder to shoulder. So yeah, there's quite a few millionaires, billionaires that are out here, and celebrities and whatnot that own a lot of property. So to me, they're just regular people. They don't really mean a whole lot to me because they bleed the same way we do. They just have a lot more money. So
when Matthew saw you, did he go, all right, all right, all right?
He did when he got in the water, and that's what made me recognize that it was him. And I have pictures. I was sending them to my daughter, and my daughter's like, Mom, stop stalking him. I'm like, I was here first. I told you to come to the damn beach with me today and take the day off of work, but all work and no play.
Well, get on to other subjects. When did you learn that you were a psychic?
So when did I learn? Okay, so back in 2014, 15, I always knew my entire life that there was something different about me, but when I was a child, it was chalked up to she has PTSD, she's, bipolar depressive, she has abandonment issues because I was taken away from my birth mother at 4 months old, and I was adopted out at 2. And so when you go through that much of an experience and that much trauma in such a short amount of time, you kind of bring in entities because you're lonely, you're scared, and you're not protected. And so when I was a child, I actually would have a serpent that would come to me on a nightly basis if my sister went to sleep before I did. And I remember just sitting in bed, like crying, please, Raquel, do not go to sleep right now. Please, please, please. And she would go to sleep. And this larger than life entity would come in, and it would wrap itself around me, and it would talk. I could see its teeth, its eyes, and everything. Well, of course, I was taught that was just a trauma. It was a traumatic experience. She's got some type of a mental issue from, all the trauma. It's like you're trying to categorize a child. And when really it was a very spiritual connection that I had to the land. And unfortunately, that was already there. We lived like 7 miles out of town in the Deltas. Well, of course, unbeknownst to me, you grow up, ego is invested, you've got life that happens, you're taken completely away from all of that. And about 2014, 15, I started going through some really horrific experiences. I mean, I'd been in horrific experiences all the way up until that point. I lost my dad. I was hospice for him. I was in an abusive marriage. I had 3 little girls. I had to walk away, be a single mom, be a warrior, but I never had the opportunity to heal. So obviously I got into drugs and alcohol. I was a bartender for a really long time. And then that brings in a lot of other stuff. And when you're on drugs and alcohol, it does cross you over into the other realms. It opens that up for you. And so you're teetering between the human realm and the spiritual realm. And it can bring in a lot of darkness, because your invisible threshold that we all have, there's cracks in it. And for some of us, there's big breaks. So in that, when you are under the influence of drugs and alcohol, entities are able to attach to you much easier because again, you're not protected. You're an open conduit. So any type of entity can get in at that point. So I started getting scratches down my back. I was seeing somebody, it was very toxic, very abusive, and everything around me was just toxic and abusive. Because they tell you to, grow up. They tell you to graduate. They tell you to, go to college and find a partner and get married and, get a career. But nobody ever stops to tell you that, hey, you need to heal. Like you've been through a lot of shit in your life. You need to heal. So a lot of people who have been through, especially the amount of trauma that I had experienced, we're gonna break eventually because we're so strong for everyone else. And that's when death comes knocking at your door. So when I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, I ended up, obviously going into another toxic relationship. And I, again, more trauma, more abuse, more abandonment, more lies, more cheating, more toxicity. And I ended up moving in with him. And when that happened, the house itself, I guess a doctor had passed away in the house next door and it was kind of bleeding through. And then the son had committed suicide. Well, because my threshold was down, I was able to be attacked. And next thing I know, I have scratches of 3, which is a complete disrespect to the Trinity, all down my back. Paul was a witness to that. I believe Paul had my back analyzed by the Department of Wildlife, if I remember correctly, just to kind of verify and validate my story of what I was saying. And it came out like there's no way with the way that the scratches were that I could have done that myself. Now, could have someone else? Yes.
Yeah,
could have someone else done it? Absolutely. But the thing is I was completely isolated and I was completely, everybody turned their back on me. Everybody left me. At this point, I'm completely suicidal. I'm seeing things. I'm losing people. I'm losing family. My world is coming crashing down at speeds faster than I can keep up with. Next thing you know, I end up with like snake bites in the back of my neck, which Paul did see those pictures as well. Things just started happening, like sprinklers started busting in the middle of the night. Next thing I know, I'd wake up in the morning and there's like thousands of birds in my tiny little yard. Then I'm seeing hummingbirds coming around my face. And then my house locks me out. And I'm in complete sheer terror. Like these things are all coming on. And it's like, I've never been taught any of this. I've always been taught that this is taboo or something that you see in the movies. This was really happening. And it was hard because everybody was telling me that I had to go to therapy. So I did. I went to therapy one time because I was told that if I didn't go to therapy, I was going to lose my kids. And so I went and I poured my entire heart out to this girl. And she looks at me and she was so taken back and didn't know what to do and failed miserably. And so I had no choice but to come out of the drug and alcohol addiction that I was in all by myself. And I couldn't tell anybody because I was already being kicked while I was down. And most people believe that you can clean mud with mud. Well, I've already had mud my entire life, and that's what got me to the point that I'm in now. So at that time, I ended up reaching out to, I tried a therapist. So I thought, okay, I'll reach out and think outside the box, because I really seriously don't understand what the hell's going on with me. And at this point, I am dying. I'm down to 109 pounds, soaking wet with boots on, ready to pass. I am willing myself at this point to die. So I reached out to a shaman, and somehow, some way, this woman had no service where she was at, and my email was able to come through. And she was so scared to death of me, she asked me never to contact her or reach her again and to lose her information. At that point, I got back online, and I'm losing it. At this point, I'm like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm going to die. And somehow Paul ended up popping up on, I don't even remember where I was looking at the time. And I reached out, and he was like, okay, well, we can be there in September. And I'm like, if you don't come now, I won't even be alive by this weekend. So at that point, it wasn't like it was anybody or anything that was trying to make me hurt other people. In fact, it was just the opposite. It wanted me to hurt myself. It wanted to take me with it, and it was going to do everything in its power. And the scratches would actually come on in front of other individuals, and they would see it happening. And it felt like hot acid down my back. And when it would come on, I just cry, because I was in such, fear of the unknown. Because how do you tell people what's going on with you when you yourself have no fucking clue? You can't explain it. And then to the people who are so unawakened, which was everybody in my sphere, they just thought, this bitch is crazy. She's lost it. This is it. You need to go into a mental institution. Well, at that point, they would have just medicated me, and I was deathly allergic to psych meds. I tried. So at one point, I came walking out of my bedroom, and the man that I had been dating at the time, he had 2 little boys. And at that point, as I walked out of the bedroom door, the rocks on the table went flying across the living room. And I remember his son, tears in his eyes, both of them in sheer terror, seeing what they just saw. And I was like, it's okay, let's just pick it up, because I'm trying to suck back tears and trying to be strong, even though I'm losing my mind at this point and seeing things that are so completely unexplainable. And he kept telling me, Peace, I didn't do that. I said, I know, honey, I know you didn't do that, but let's just go ahead and work together, and let's get this picked up. And this poor baby, the things that these poor kids had to see, including my own children had to see, still affects us to this day. Unfortunately, I am still to this day, over a decade of being clean. After I met Paul and he did my exorcism, he was able to get the EVPs of the entity that was attacking me. And in the EVP, he was trying to call it out, and it ended up being where I was trying to do my art in order to keep myself alive. So I was trying to focus on just beautifying something and doing my art just to keep my creative mind going in order to keep myself alive. And at the same time, it was doing what it could to wipe me out. At one point, I started investigating bugs, invisible bugs, and I came up with thrips. Thrips are tiny little bugs I never even knew about, and I'll never forget that, thrips. And so I called in the bug guy. And the bug guy shows up, and I show him my back, and he looks at me and he says, lady, those are not bug bites. I don't know what that is. You need to get some type of help. And at that point, he came into the house and he sprayed. And as soon as he walked out, I went in and I sat there in the bug spray. I couldn't take it anymore. I was at my wit's end, and that's when I finally reached out to Paul. Paul and his wife, and Stacy was her name, or
Tammy
showed up, and I'm sorry,
Tammy Straley.
Yes, they showed up and went through and did their investigations and whatnot, and were able to see. And when they showed up, like, I had no soul in my eyes. There was nothing going on back here. It was just this body, but nothing going on behind it. And after working with them and talking with them and explaining to them everything and showing them around, and they were able to do their investigations, Paul wasn't able to get anything for a while. It was like it wanted to hide, and it wanted to hide well. And where it was hiding, it was exactly where I was always sitting and trying to get away from it. We ended up doing the exorcism in the bathtub. And after that, that's when the light turned back on. After that, I was able to see Archangel Michael. I was able to bring him in. And like I said, I'm not a religious person whatsoever. I use all entities. I'm not one for like being Christian or Catholic or this or that, but I take what resonates and discard the rest. So to answer your question, since I was a little girl.
Right. And Peace, was it you? Okay, I've been on like 2,500 investigations, so I get them all mixed up. On the investigation with you, was that the situation where you're practically climbing up the bathroom wall? Was that
No,
you? Or
no.
was that somebody else?
No, oh no, I did have to go through the bathroom window because the entity was able to lock me out from the inside out. I
Oh,
had left because I ended up giving away my car keys for about a year and a half. I had to lock myself away. I was genuinely petrified of this place, but I couldn't leave it because I was a prisoner of the home. And I did finally have to go out and go grab a couple of little things from the store because I needed something, just food and, necessities and stuff. And when I came back, I was completely locked out with the chain lock from the inside out. So I did have to climb. And mind you, at that point in time, the little bathroom windows, the little rectangular ones, I was so tiny, I fit into it without touching any side.
oh, wow. And also, too, I remember when we first went to your place, everything seemed normal. Then all of a sudden, things shifted, and I could see some type of demonic entity inside you. Um, it was mind blowing. Um, the things that I saw, and also too the picture of the scratches that was given to one of my paranormal investigators who happened to be a warden for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and he actually showed it to a homicide detective, and the homicide detective said, "Okay, if she was killed, let's say, for an example." He said there was no way she could have inflicted those claw marks on her back. Somebody else had to do it.
I also had a dream during that time. So while the scratches were coming on, there was a dream that I had had. Well, you wouldn't call it a dream, it'd be a nightmare. Where I was laying on my back on the mattress in my dream. And I remember there was a knife that was coming through the mattress. And I remember feeling it in my rib cage on the right hand side. And I remember like turning to get off of the knife. And in the morning, and I had the scar for the longest time. I still have pictures of it in my Pandora's box phone, which I still have of all the pictures, everything we're talking about, all the evidence is in that phone. I just have never opened it since then. And the next morning when I woke up, from the dream, I had a knife mark on my back, and I had blood that was dried that had dripped from it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's like, when you go through these experiences, like they're so unexplainable that you lose your mind. And when you do that, again, you're still an open conduit to all these other spirits because you have lowered that threshold and anything can attach itself to you. So that just happened to be like where I was, not everybody goes through the awakening like I had to go through, but it was for a higher purpose. Like I genuinely went through a death and rebirth process. And I mean, I went through, being in the service and restaurant industry, bartending, for over 20 years. That was my career. And the universe definitely had a different like destiny and journey and dharma, whatever you want to call it for me. And that's what put me on the road now to where I am, because I didn't believe in any of this shit beforehand. If you would have tried to talk to me about it, I would have, okay, and taken another shot on your bill, like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever, until you go through the experience. And the experience is so, you can smash up every scary movie that there is, and there is nothing comparable to going through the experience I went through. Like at this point, I'm at the level of, I mean, other than snakes in Florida, which I don't like, and that's why I live in Hawaii, is because there's no snakes unless they come in on a Christmas tree or something. Um, because of the serpent from when I was a child, that kind of clears that up for you as to why I'm petrified of snakes. Um, it, I'm at a level of unfuckable at this point. Like nothing scares me. Like none of what's going on in the world, not any of this. I just don't get caught up in it. I go off and do my own thing, and I just warn other people now.
Wow, that is shocking. I mean, all the things that you went through. Oh, it gives me shivers right down my spine. Before we move on, Phil, Stacy, Paranormal Soul Brother, you got anything you want to ask her about her experience?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
No, I was gonna say, go ahead, brother Phil.
Yeah. I was just wondering if, I mean, you kind of explained it very well, but thank you for sharing it. But yeah, you said it, and you said it was unexplainable. These kind of things are unexplainable. But do you have any idea at all, or you that telling you as to, was there a place you could have picked this up? Was there a moment? Was there one traumatic experience where do you think something attached to you? Was it the drugs? Was it the culmination of everything, or do you think it was just one? Because I've lived in houses that seem creepy. I've had traumatic experiences that were overwhelming. Do you think it was just everything that just made you so susceptible that you were wide open for this kind of thing?
It was the culmination. So during that awakening, so after I met Paul, and how I got into psychic astrology, tarot cards, that kind of stuff. It wasn't just because like, oh my God, like that's so great. Well, obviously it was the trauma that took me to where I am today. And so next thing you know, I remember sitting on my floor and I had just like smashed my pipe, right? I was done. Like, this is it. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to die. Like, this stuff is happening and I'm susceptible to it all because I'm bringing this in from my own pain. And they feed off of that pain and trauma, and they want to keep you in a dark place. They want you to succumb. And so I started getting emails from astrologers. I'd never looked up astrology. I mean, once in a while I read my, horoscope, but I'm a Virgo, like that doesn't resonate, but this one does, So I started getting emails about astrology, from spirit. And then next thing you know, had psychics popping up in my newsfeed on Facebook and on Instagram. And so I started going down these rabbit holes of like, oh my God, this resonates. Oh, they're talking about me. And then I'm like, wait a minute, sun, moon, and rising. I know my sun sign's Virgo, but what's my moon and rising? Oh, shoot, we have a natal chart. Oh my God, what does this mean? Oh shit, I have a lot of stuff in my 12th house. What is the 12th house? And come to find out, I had a lot of what we call either benefic planets or malefic planets in your 12th house. Well, your 12th house is your house of self-undoing. 12th house is usually a Pisces house, right? Everybody's is going to be different depending on your own natal chart. When I started going into the astrology and going down that rabbit hole, I realized I had Black Moon Lilith. I had Neptune, which is the dissolver of boundaries. I had Chiron, which is the wounded healer. I had the South Node, which is these eclipses, which is opening you up to a whole nother level. In the 12th house of Pisces, which rules, get this, illusions, delusions, fantasies, mental institutions, sorrow, depression, sex, drugs, alcohol, codependent relationships, prison, mental health, prisons. You can actually go to jail in the 12th house. So the only way out of the 12th house is through. And what is through? Through the art of spirituality, through the art of your beliefs, whether that's religion or spiritual or whatever it is that you see as a higher self. So the 12th house is the house of self-undoing. So in order for me to get to where I am today, I had to go through the house of self-undoing. Well, at the same time, I started following this astrologer. It's the KRS channel, and I'll shout out to him, because if it wasn't for him putting out this video, which has to do with Rahu and Ketu, which is the north and south node of the moon, he put out a video on it, and it was literally my story of the demonics and bringing you into the woods in a very dark place. And he actually did a video on it. And one of the things he said is, like, one of the hardest things about this transit is getting through alive, but it will open you up. And most people who end up going through these transits end up coming out as psychics or healers, or, they're able to mediums or whatever, all of the above. They end up somehow, some way, because Pisces is the healer, it's the shaman, and so me being Virgo in my chart, I had to purify my life in order for me to master both sides. And I was actually born with the North and South node, North node Virgo, South node Pisces, which was the exact transits that were activating all of the planets, which brought this to the forefront. And again, Pisces being the house of self-undoing, I had to undo myself from all the victimization, the trauma, the drugs, because what did I say 12th house is? It's drugs. You're taking yourself to a whole nother level, which then again, you're kind of creeping between. So
this path was literally set for you before birth, is what you're saying.
Yes. Your natal chart says everything about you. And it gives you the meaning of life, all the way down to your hair color, your eye color, your relationships, what you're supposed to be, who you're supposed to come into contact with. Will you get that job? Will you not? Will you become the president of the United States? It doesn't matter what you're voting for. It's just if it's in your destiny, it's in your destiny, and it shows up in your chart. Once I started learning that, and then recognizing, like, this is all energy, it's a simulation. And through these traumas ends up coming like this, out of the darkness comes the light. Well, I had to go through the darkness of Pisces to get myself through that purity and into my spirituality, so that I could move forward and be able to help other people, because then the student becomes the teacher.
Paul, you're on mute.
Oh, Peace. We have like 1 minute and 26 seconds left. So what we're going to do is take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to send you a second link so we can finish up this interview.
Okay.
Your story is fantastic. I'm going to send an email to Guillermo del Toro, who just did Frankenstein, and tell him about your story. I mean, it's made for a movie.
Well, this puts a whole new spin on nature versus nurture. The whole argument for destiny, criminal behavior, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what we were talking about last time when I was telling you that I've done like criminal cases and stuff, just for the family members. Like I don't do it for the police department, but basically what I am is I'm a profiler. I can profile you. I can look at your chart and be like, okay, this is how your mom treated you. This is how your dad treated you. This is how you are, get through your traumas or your emotions, or you're emotionally unavailable. But there's always a way out. You just have to look at the.
Wait, how did you know that?
I'm good at my job.
Okay, 10 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
It's weird.
Yeah, about the second half of the show, it seemed to happen.
Go slower.
That's weird.
All right. Peace. We're going to talk about you being an astrologer. How did you get into this field?
So, as I was talking earlier about with my awakening and the, demonics and all of that, I started getting the emails about astrology in my newsfeed. And like I said, psychics in my, or emails about astrology, and then psychics in my newsfeed on social media. And I was willing to think outside the box and study. And, I was trying to live, throughout all the chaos. I was just trying to find an answer, and nobody was willing to give me that answer, and nobody had the answer. The only person that had the answer was myself. So my spirit guides, angels, ancestors, whatever you want to call them, ended up sending me emails, and started going down the rabbit hole. And I just started listening and listening and listening, and it all started making sense. And then when I realized, oh my gosh, I have a sun, I have a moon, I have a rising. Oh my goodness. Like, oh, I have a destiny. I started going down that rabbit hole, and I started finding out all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, that resonates. Yeah, that's true. Yes, I went through that experience. Oh my God, that's where I am now. Oh shit, and I just kept going and going. And all of a sudden, it just started making perfect sense. So then I started looking at my friends and my family, charts and things like that. And it just clicked. It was like, when you have, like back in the olden days when the computers would go through their upgrades, and it had all the numbers and stuff that would just, go across the screen, and they'd go up. And that's how I started downloading all the information, is like, it just started coming in, and it was coming in at speeds that I couldn't even keep up with. And so, but it all made sense. And it was like, it just came so freaking naturally that I had no choice but to go. And now, ta-da, this is what I do for a living. I've been in business for over a decade since that experience. And I mean, really, right when I came out of isolation is when I went right into business and started this. And it wasn't like a business. It was like, I can't go back to a mundane job. I can't go and, be around a bunch of people and toxicity and people stabbing each other in the back and, chaos and drama. And it's like, I can't be a part of that anymore. I don't fit in there, because once you go through this and you go through the evolution process, there's no turning back. And parts of your life that used to be so normal, because a lot of us, we don't know ourselves without the chaos. And once I started learning, like, holy shit, I actually have to live up to my name, Peace. Like, that's when I became the footsteps to peace. And so yeah, like it's been a crazy ride, but if it wasn't for the demonic aspects of what I went through, out of the darkness comes a light, like, we all have heard millions of times, but that really does ring true in my life.
Peace, when you talked about the emotion, and two things I was thinking about, the bugs. First of all, the bugs, people could say, whatever whatever they want, but there have been people that they've put in, say they've got an insane asylum, and they had 4 different patients that said, hey, I'm seeing something. So these patients don't know each other, and they put them in there, and they all see the same thing. They all see the bugs, and they say, well, maybe these people see in another dimension. They're saying, and so like it took, experiments, and it's kind of like reminds me of the autistic children who learn on the hill. Like they come out of learning languages and everything, but they contact each other mentally, and they teach each other. And so, they got proof of this. So the same thing. But when you said about the emotional part, I don't know if you know this, but Russia and United States, with all the declassification, I think the most important experience they had dealt with the emotional content. They admitted in both studies that your emotional self, well, first of all, Dr. Roger C. Miller said that your emotional self was 400 times more informed than your normal self, number one. But they also found that in these experiments, when they would beat people down, break them down to their bare essence, to their emotional self, like, and for lack of a better term, they would put them through a lot of stuff, torture these kids, these different subjects. But what they found out, these were the people that ended up able to, in this one particular case, a portion where they could not just remote view, but they could remote view and put their hand and grab this shit and bring it back. Most people, they say, oh, yeah, I can remote view. No, these people remote view and form a hand that even the scientists had to say, okay, what is this made of? How long does it stay? Is it solid? All these things, just wondering how these people did it, but it came from them stripped down to the emotional state. So when you said as a child, these things are happening, it sounds like you're already awakened. And I have a son who we went through stuff when me and him were in an accident, but I really feel that it had awakened him. But they talk about Dr. Marcus Webb did experiments on rewiring neurons, like when people get in an accident and they say, "Oh, I'm now you have all these newfound abilities," and they think it's because of the hit on the head, but they said no, it's just a rewiring of neurons, and they can do that every time now. So, when you were a child and these things happen to you, you probably got the rewiring and the abilities that people just, like you said, unless it's happening to them, they wouldn't believe it,
Well, because it's such a phenomenon. And we are always looking for a logistic, it has to be logical. We want the logical mind, not this, foo-foo woo-woo as far as they're concerned and just an excuse. And it's like, there's something so much bigger than what is right here. And that's the thing. It's like the government.
But that's okay though, because they're starting to be able to verify. And for people who need like absolute proof and they need scientific, jargon, they've got that for those people as well now. That's what the beautiful thing is. If you don't believe it, but it really doesn't matter. Ultimately, you're going to have to connect the way you can connect. But yeah.
Well, and you also have to understand that not everybody was sent here to wake up, A. B, everybody wakes up at their own time. C, people wake up based off of the traumas that they experience. And some of them, they're already awake when they got here. So like the newer babies that are being born at this time, these new babies that are being born with Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius, they're going to have the recollection of their past lives. Unlike our generations where we came in, we had the recollection, and then we went back to sleep. Why? Because society put us back to sleep. The programming through television, the indoctrination, the constant like distractions that we're all in. And then you got Oprah Winfrey, who came out and was like, everybody has a mental health issue. Everybody has a mental health issue. Here's a pill for you and a pill for you. So now we tell everybody that there's a fucking problem with them and that you need to be medicated and you need to be categorized. Well, here's the deal. These categorized people that you have bipolar and you're schizophrenic, there's nothing fucking wrong with you. You went through trauma. Some of you guys don't have a diagnosis. That's not what it's supposed to be. We want to tell you that there's something wrong with you so that you don't look at the real actual issues, which is the astrology is affecting you. The moon moves every 2.5 days. These planets are affecting certain aspects of your chart, which is in turn going to either wake you up or put you right back to sleep. It'll make good people do bad things and bad people turn around and do good things. So at the end of the day, they'll tell you if you're schizophrenic. You're not schizophrenic. Like my birth mother, she was schizophrenic. She was tuned into one of the radio stations that we're all tuned into. Some of us are just tuned into a lower vibrational frequency. That's where she's at. That's why I was taken away from her. Now, on the other hand, I was in that lower vibrational frequency. I decided to turn up the volume and I went into a new frequency because I didn't like the channel that I was in. When we talk about bipolar, it's a lot of people who have a lot of water in their chart and they're ruled by the moon. Moon is our emotions. So of course they're going to be bipolar because the moon goes through earth and then it goes through fire and then it goes through water and then it goes through air. So 2.5 days, you're all emotional, want to throw the blankets up over your head. The other days, you're going to be really passionate and fiery. The next days, you're going to be overanalyzing everything. And the next days, you're going to want to go out and freaking garden or cook a meal. You know what I mean? So it's like we're constantly, and when you learn how to go through the cycles of life, which is what we're all taken so far away from. So if we tell you, you got a problem, everybody's got a freaking problem. I was diagnosed PTSD, bipolar depressive when I was 18 months old. There was nothing wrong with me. I was traumatized, yeah, but I was very spiritually aware. So if we put this jacket on you and then fill you up, then you aren't feeling your way through it. And the only way out is to feel your way through it. So that's why people get themselves into addiction, AKA Pisces. Pisces rules addiction. Cancers are alcoholics, a lot of them. You know, a lot of like the water signs and things like that, they usually have addiction issues. And why is that? Because they're always focused on the past. They're always focused on the things and the people and the situations that got away. And then what do they want to do? They want to escape. Where do they escape? Drugs, sex, alcohol, pornography, AKA Pisces. And then they have this pile of shit like I had. I had a huge pile of shit of trauma and abuse, sexual, mental, physical, all kinds of abuse and abandonment to the freaking max from birth. And instead of allowing me to heal from that, it piled up and it piled up. And what are we taught? You keep moving forward. You keep being a warrior. You don't have time to stop when your mother dies or your father dies. You got to get your ass back to work. You don't get those grievance days. So it piles up and it piles up and it piles up and it piles up until it finally explodes. And this is why people are on drugs and alcohol these days. And it's because nobody taught them how to heal because there's no time. So what do? We clean mud with mud. We treat them like shit. We kick them while they're down, like they haven't been down enough from their childhood, instead of being kinder to them, having more understanding. Yeah, it's hard. But then here's the deal. They do everything in their power to quit doing drugs. But then here, the pile of shit that they were sleeping through, that they never got through, is still piling up with everyday life. So while they're trying to sift through and make amends with their past, try to find forgiveness and receive forgiveness, they're still being kicked. And then still life, you got to pay bills. You got to go to the doctor. You got to go to the park. You got to walk your dog. You got to, take care of your mortgage. You got to fix all these things. And guess what? That's when most people relapse and they go right back into drugs and alcohol. Those are the things that we're not talking about. And that, yes, has a lot to do with our water in our chart. It's all of our emotion. Now, if we could skip the water element, we'd breeze through life, no problem. We'd blaze through it. It wouldn't matter.
How do you get through to somebody like that? I've got a whole family of addicts. I mean, if you shook my family tree, the whole tree would fall down. And
Well,
I've
first
had
off,
many.
they want
I've had many conversations with many of them, and especially when they're in the throes of addiction, or maybe even on the rebound of it, trying to fight it. I don't know whether it's the drug calling them back or the addiction calling them back, but
it takes a while. It depends on what
Oh,
planet is
I understand.
aspecting.
I
It takes a
understand.
while because
Yes.
if they have a planet that takes, like Pluto has sat in Capricorn from 2008
Yeah.
to 2024. So if they're like an Aquarius or Aquarius rising, they've had Pluto in their 12th house. So a lot of Aquarians are losing their freaking minds right now, in and out of mental institutions, on drugs, or in, homeless camps or whatever. They're in a self-made prison locked in their head. Now, here's the deal. If you're Pisces now, you have Pluto transiting, and that takes from 2024 to 2044. So depending on the planet and the aspects and how far out it is going to depend on how long it's going to take for this person to get it. And they have to want it. They have,
Well, that's
But Phil, you know what? One important thing though is that what a lot of times we forget is that on a celestial level, you got plenty evidence of entities on whole other levels than us getting high and doing what they want. So that's been out there even before humans even came along.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a cosmic problem, a galactic thing that's going on. So the solution is it's so complex.
Yeah. I can only speak for myself because I have abused things for decades, and I only stopped when I wanted to stop. Nobody could ever make me just
you gotta get tired of going through that process.
All the advice,
kids.
all the advice in the world.
It don't do nothing.
Never meant shit. It was only when one day, and I can't even tell you that it was a conscious decision. Sometimes it was just like all of a sudden I realized, you know what, I stopped doing that. I didn't even realize I stopped doing that kind of thing. It just it ran its course, kind of thing.
Yes.
But I think
everybody has
I'm
their
fortunate.
time.
Exactly.
What I was going to say about you, is you used to like having yourself look good, presentable, be on top of everything. You probably got tired of going through that process of breaking down and building back up. And your friends and colleagues and people that looked at you, once you thought about it, I mean, you rather show up like how you are now than how you show up. At some point, people decide, how am I showing up? If you got kids or whatever it is, it's gonna be some kind of truth in your experience that will turn it around.
I've been a functional addict and alcohol. They would call it in my life. I've been the best liar in the world. I've been able to hide it from anybody and everybody. But I've got friends
lying with the truth. You lie with the truth.
With the truth, exactly.
Like I'm on drugs or something.
Hide in plain sight.
Yeah.
So it's but I've got friends and family who took it way further and derailed their entire lives and destroyed everything. And it's hard to tell somebody that, oh, I've been there, I've done that, because I have, but I've always been able to still maintain it, just kind of stay on the edge without going over that edge, because I knew I didn't want to, well, how could I pay for my drug if I totally flushed all down the toilet? I'm not going to go that far with it. I still got to, that kind of thing. Plus, what's that? Sorry, Stacy.
I was gonna say, first, I do believe in all of the energy in the planet and everything like that. It's not just that causes addictions or mental problems. It's genetic. So my problems are in was addiction. Addiction is genetic. They try and tell you that it's not passed on and it's not a genetic thing, but it is.
Yeah.
And when you get to the point where, you said you have some people and family that are going through this right now, they either had to be forced to do it, or
See, you're cutting out really bad.
Yeah, you're cutting out.
all right.
I totally hear you, State. My mother died of a cocaine overdose.
Yeah.
She left a suicide note. I died of a fentanyl overdose. I've got cousins that have died of, various, heroin, you name it. It's deep. Alcoholics at both sides of the family.
It's hard.
The whole thing. And then it's still on both sides of the family in every successive generation. So the genes are there. I totally believe it's genetic. Some of us have it worse than others. And that's what, but I guess the point I'm trying to say is when you're trying to say, look at the bright side of life, like Monty Python has that great song, always look at the bright side of life. There are some great things about life. I love sex and ice cream, two of my favorite things. However, and I can always tell somebody, there's always sex and there's always ice cream to look forward to, right? What's better than that? There's some people, they're at that point where they're like, oh no, that sucks. I'm like, man, you must be really fucking down if you think that sucks. But I understand, when you're down, you're down. But life does suck. Life is a pile of shit. You're born into, I got to grow up. I got to go get a job. I got to go deal with a bunch of bullshit. I got to struggle. I got to try to make ends meet. I have to come up with a plan for retirement. I've got to go, I've got to put my dog to sleep this week. But there are horrible things just in the mundane day to day that everybody has to go through, that everybody has to deal with. Oh, now I have to take care of my parents because they're getting elderly. Oh, grandma doesn't know who the hell I am anymore. You know what I mean?
The grandma's been thinking about it many years, just like us. You know what I mean? Like you said, Phil, if you do that and you're like, when you do that, you're 20, it's one thing. You do that at 30, it's another thing. You do that at 50 and 60, your mind is starting to wear down on that type of shit. So,
Yeah, I guess there is no magic word. There are no magic words.
No, there's not.
No,
They either have to be forced to do it, or less permission, or they have to be so far down that they will do it themselves.
And also too, a lot of people go to drugs because all the depressing news that is out there. And one of the things, like, I'm 17 years old. I'm old as shit. But I have to listen to shit like this where they say, well, a man usually lives up to 76 years old. That gives me 6 fucking years. And a woman lives up to 81 years.
80.
So I'm going to fucking transition, be a woman, and I can live to 81.
That's
No. You can stay the wankster. You stay the wankster. Well, that's the thing, Phil, like what you said about when you think about all this stuff, if you're like I said, if you're thinking about it every day, at some point somebody's going to correct at different points than other people, because you wake up, oh, like you said, I got to put my dog to sleep. I hope I'm not sick. I have something, so I want to live for my kids, hope my kids don't get hurt. Hope, my mom, it's all these things, that when you wake up. So I personally, I just put a little stop sign and go, I said, stop. Okay. And that's the only thing. But as far as what you said about the addiction, yeah, like you said, unless it's a chemical thing happening in your body too. So you're competing with not just an endorphin and a chemical thing, so telling a person to just stop, when they've got, they're dealing with substance, that's another thing. And people have designed this shit to do this. So, you're looking at a lot of things. So,
and on top of that too, it's like, that is going to be the door that either opens you to the higher realms, because most
or
people
not.
who have experienced
some
drugs and
people.
alcohol,
I said, for some people, this isn't an all
and
people.
others are going to end up dead or in a mental institution and still end up being disabled. It's not a one size fits all. It depends on your destiny, and it depends on how you're able to overcome that. That's just part of life. I was able to do it in a completely different way. And now I'm able to help other people through their addictions, through my astrology, through giving them the answer instead of trying to give them more drugs to help them with their drug overdose. Again, you're cleaning mud with mud. And at the end of the day, you think the government doesn't know all of this? There was a reason why Albert Einstein came to the final conclusion, because he was so into there had to be a mathematical equation to every single thing that we went through in our life.
Another Pisces, March 14th.
Exactly. And so at one point, him and a bunch of scientists came together and they were trying to figure out the answer to this question, and they did it over and over and over again. And finally, one scientist came in and said, listen, I think I figured it out. Depends on the mood that we were in. Did we get in a fight with our wife? Was there something, that we were experiencing? Because based off of that, we're going to come to a different answer every time we come in and try to answer it based off of the energy we were in before we got here. And Einstein was like, no, bullshit, because again, mathematical equation, not energy. They never did expose what it was that had happened to Albert Einstein, where he finally came out and said, for every action, there's an equal or opposite reaction.
Well, he wrote a letter to his daughter.
That mathematical equation, because there wasn't one. It was based off of the energy that you brought in, based off of what was going on before you got there.
Well, you see, the thing about Einstein, number one, his wife did a lot of his equations. But as far as what, he ended up, his last letter of love to his daughter was really pretty profound. And it reflects his re-examining of his philosophies. But Dr. Sarah Chin, working out at CERN, they have proved that when you're looking at molecules, if you're looking at them, they're empowered right there. If you look away and they're in a vacuum, they're not even there. They're not even doing what they're doing. So if I'm talking to you right here, the way I can affect those molecules with energy in your reality is more deeper than what people know. Some people used to, they say, oh, if you really concentrate, but they've proven, and also you have Sarah Chan, you have Elena Rodriguez, who also, she did experiments where if you have two people in a room and expect the outcome of something, and you have two people in another room and expect the outcome, depending on what they're expecting, you'll get the outcome that's expected of the people that are paired together, or the energy. So everything you're saying, like I'm saying now, even things that are considered shamanic. Another guy, Credo Mutwa, who just died at 94 years old, he was a guy that said, hey, listen, man, and he was from he was a Sansui. He was from the Zulu nation. And Sansuis are one of the few people, it's only like maybe one left. They're the only ones that know the pre-missionary and pre-colonial history and know the real shamanic arts stuff. Because for me, we can quote all the books, we can quote all the charts we want, but if it really doesn't go back and it hasn't really been used in practice, and it doesn't have any like root in something ancient, because like if you're going to tell me the ancients, like that preceded us by 200,000 years, if you're going to say all they did was just, drink wine, lay in the sun, and chase people all day, and, and they didn't know what God, or they didn't know what spiritualism was, or they didn't know any kind of thing about magic or anything, a lot of the people will tell you, hey, you took our gold, you took our oil, you took everything else. If we showed you what the hell we really could do, imagine what you would do with that. So the mystery and about human behavior, whether it be astrology, whether it be divination. A matter of fact, the Mandingos, when they got to China, the first dynasty, you'll notice the Zhang, the Sao, and the Zhou, they were doing divination based on stuff that was 100,000 years old. And now they do it like, and they don't even know where the shit came from, but it works for them. So you're gonna find the truth trickling down as long as you open to if you're not against syncretism, say maybe your God or your spiritual person, you're using other methods to attain what you want. If you don't mind mixing and matching, which you probably don't have a problem with, then you probably can get whatever you need. But when you talk about astrology, there's some other deep aspects people don't talk about. When you talk about in Kemet, 30,000 years of astrology that came before the Greek and the Roman version that you see now was even deeper. It was so deep they couldn't even understand this shit because the Library of Alexandria was originally in Greece, which is Heliopolis, and then it was originally University of Anu in Egypt. So the real shit still is out there to be, some more marvelous stuff that we can, go ahead and figure out. So, I'm with you on anything, but the astrology, the more you talk about it, the more I keep thinking of mine of the real astrology that there is with the 13th month, the intercalary month, and the perfect days where you don't have to do a 365 year day. And then if you look at Enoch, even though that's a religious thing, but the moon cycles in that are pretty interesting. And they really, if you want to get into the energies and what they really do with astrology, that's pretty deep too.
Well, it's like the one thing about astrology, and this is what I love about it doesn't require your belief. It just is, regardless of what your belief is. Whereas like God needs your belief. It needs your belief. Religion needs your belief. Astrology is happening regardless. The planets have been going around the sun going back, obviously, since the test of time. So people can either, push it away, but they do talk about astrology in the Bible, it's all written by a different version, depending on who's telling the story. The cool part about spirituality is it's your own experience, whereas religion is somebody else's, and it's based off of fear. So when it comes to astrology, that's what saved my life. It was never something I would have chosen for myself, although I chose it before I stepped into this existence. And it is part of my destiny, and it is what saved my life. And that is my belief. And like I said, I use the archangels. I was able to see Archangel Michael when I was in one of the darkest spaces. I was able to see entities, which is one of the darkest things you can even be tapped into. I was able to see so many different things. So like I said, I use it all in tandem. I don't use just one thing. Ancestors, mediumship, energy, whatever you want to call it. So astrology, by the time I die, I will never even scratch the surface. And right now, what I'm working on is medical astrology. Hey, I am now going down the rabbit hole of medical astrology because the first doctors ever were all astrologers. They had to know your natal chart in order to be able to diagnose you.
Imhotep. He's the metal top. Socrates, Hippocrates. They said, hey, the greatest doctor, but his philosophy was like what we say, know thyself. The more you know yourself, the more you can heal. Okay.
Yep. And from learning my astrology, I've had 7 surgeries, I've had cancer, and I've been able to overcome addiction. I've been able to overcome trauma, which is all our body being record keepers. If it wasn't for the amount of Virgo that I have in my chart, I wouldn't be where I am today. But it was a hard aspect, but you change your mindset, you change your energy, you change your outcome. Our bodies are record keepers from all the trauma that we experience. But does that mean we have to succumb to it? I was able to use my astrology and my knowledge of it and continue to go down the rabbit hole in order to heal myself. Not something a doctor these days know how to do. Now it's just push a pill. Here, there's a Band-Aid. Then you're having to heal from both. You have to heal from the ailment, and now you got to heal from the side effect of what they're trying to cure you with. I'm able to use the earth because of all the Virgo in my chart. What is the Virgo depicted as? A beautiful woman on a boat who carries wheat and medicine. She is the closest to the Virgin Mary, and she is all about purity. She's purity. So what did I do? I purified my life. I used the higher octave of my chart instead of, because we all have a higher octave and a lower octave. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Peace, I just got to ask you something because we're getting short on time.
Yeah.
This interview's almost done, but I just got to ask you, are Capricorns dickheads? Because I'm a Capricorn.
So Capricorns are a
Absolutely.
little rough around the edges. They're very hardworking, but they are rigid. They are rigid and they can lose their shit. And I will tell you that they are the devil in the tarot. Not that you guys are the devil. I get along with my Cappies really well. I'm a Virgo, so that's my sister sign. But they're not for everyone because they work their asses off and everybody has eyes on the Capricorn and they can kind of scoot through and get the promotions while everybody else is pissed.
Thank you.
Is there any crossover between, or I mean, how does the Chinese zodiac relate to the, the Western?
It's all of it works together. All of it works in tandem. Numerology, the chakras, Chinese astrology, Vedic astrology. Doesn't matter what you do. You can use, all of these different charts and they're all going to come out and say the same thing. Like I do, hey, Phoenix, I do progress charts. And so progress charts is based off of like how long you've been on this earth. So like for me, my rising sign is Aries. So I'm a 21-degree Aries. So it goes, how many months have I been on this earth? Well, my progress chart goes all the way to Gemini. So now I've graduated from being an Aries ascendant. Now I'm a Gemini ascendant. All my planets that were in Virgo have now shifted into, I have a lot in Scorpio, which has to do with taboo. And it has to do with psychics and tarot and like esoteric knowledge, basically, which is knowledge that's, the forbidden knowledge, right? So having all of these planets in that area. What's that?
How much time do we have left?
The Akashic Records.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Akashic Records.
5 minutes, Stacey.
5 minutes.
5 minutes? I'm sorry, what?
5 minutes, Stacey.
All right. Am I still cutting out?
No, but we can't see you.
I can hear you.
I turned the video off to see if I would stop cutting out. So at least I can still see you guys. So, logging the system down.
So it all works in tandem. And even with the Bible, what I've realized with all the people's different belief systems, they're all freaking talking about the same damn thing. They just call it something different and everybody's way is the right way. Well, no, it's like, you can have, of course, they sideswipe beliefs and whatever else, and that's totally fine. But that doesn't make yours any better than mine. That doesn't make mine any more demonic than what you're doing. It's all in what you're tuned into. For me, astrology, people will say, if the way I look at it is, if you're not living a life that you would have been burned at the stake 4,000 years ago, are you really living? I'm okay with where I am. And I don't mind that some people are, offended by what I do, but I live in an island and actually people like this stuff here. They come here to heal for this. That's why I have clients from all over the world. I do virtual readings. I am able, and it's not about my services, it's about my energy that brings these people in. I either resonate with you and you really like me and I'm a really cool person, or you don't. I mean, I'm either or. I'm not for everyone, but that's because of my bluntness. That's because of how I am. I don't think that I'm better than anyone else. I don't think anybody is, or a certain belief is better than anyone else's. At the end of the day, we're all entitled to our own beliefs. This is just what happened to me. Now, on the other hand, my family won't have anything to do with me. I'm not allowed to see my grandchildren. I'm not even allowed to be anywhere near my kids and my kids are in their 20s unless I stop doing what I'm doing. But what I'm doing, I can't turn off. It's not a switch that you flip. So I make a huge sacrifice every day when I wake up to go out there and help other people on their journey and help them understand where they're at. And, if they don't believe in me, they're not going to come to me. I don't charge them. I'm like, hey, we don't resonate. That's cool. Find someone that does. I'm not for everyone. So I'm grateful for all the experiences, the demonic experiences, the understandings that I do have, because with that, I have been able to help so many people through drugs and alcohol, people who have been sex trafficked, people who are going through grief and trauma and loss and sadness, people who just want to move, people who just want to know. that's what I'm here for. There's nothing that is off limits with me.
We've got 2 minutes left, Stacy. Can you please tell everyone, one, thank you for sharing everything that you have. It's been a wonderful
Yeah, thank you.
time with
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you, Peace.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
you.
And how can people contact you?
Exactly.
So you can either contact me on my website at thefootstepstopeace.com or over on Instagram, thefootstepstopeace.com, Facebook, same thing, and over on YouTube under Peace Unhinged Tarot. And I also do private gatherings for clientele through the enchantedtablehawaii.com. Excuse me, enchantedtablehawaii.com.
Peace.
All right.
How close are you to highway number 1?
We only have 11. We don't have a 1 here.
Oh, okay. One's on the other island, right?
Yeah.
Okay. When I was on the other island, and I told this guy, I said, I'm lost. And he goes, how can you be lost? There's only one highway.
I always tell people, you're not lost. You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have met me.
That's a true story.
That's crazy, Paul. Peace, do they still have those snow cones, those famous snow cones over
Oh,
there?
yes. Come on, sweetie. We ain't getting away from those.
All right, before we run out of time, though, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share as much as possible so that we can get these videos out to everybody. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you.
And also, too, happy Veterans Day to Phil.
Happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day. Thank you for your service.
And thank you so much.
And right back at you, Paul. Happy Veterans Day, brother.
Yep.
Yes,
Love you,
gentlemen.
big hugs.
Thank you.
Love you all.
And we got 11 seconds. Yay.
Thank you, guys.
I'm going to do a dance.
All right. Woo, get it.
You should